when a guy has those advantages in boxing skill and speed, and they don't take risks, they are almost impossible to beat. You do not hold, and you are throwing punches. Boxing is hit and don't get hit. Shakur is the best at that. When a great pure boxer is putting on a performance, some people will complain, oh, it's boring because there's no drama.
Right.
But you have to, I at least, appreciate the fact that he's operating on such a high level that there is no drama. He is in total control. And I just, when you see something like that, I said, you hang it in the Louvre. It's a masterpiece.
Yes.
And I said, with that style he fought, it doesn't matter who he fight, he would give them trouble.
Max Kellerman analyzes the potential Devin Haney versus Shakur Stevenson fight as a high-level chess match rather than a slugfest. He notes Haney's discipline, jab control, and ring generalship, but emphasizes Stevenson's elite defense, timing, and counterpunch accuracy.
Somebody grabbed the scorecards and the conspiracy board because the boxing internet just caught fire. Max Kellerman stepped in with a breakdown so sharp it could cut through steel. And now the Devin Haney versus Shakur Stevenson debate isn't just a fantasy fight, it's a full-blown digital war. We're talking styles, skills, ring IQ, defensive wizardry, and enough hot takes to melt a microphone. This isn't analysis. This is verbal pay-per-view, when a veteran voice starts dissecting this matchup. Fans don't listen, they mobilize. Timelines split faster than a bad decision in Vegas. Half the crowd says Haney boxers circles around him. The other half says Shakur turns the ring into a chessboard and checkmates the night. And the loudest group says everybody else is blind. This matchup talk is so tense, it makes reality TV look like a nature documentary. Every jab gets debated. Every footstep gets analyzed. Every hypothetical round already has unofficial judges screaming robbery. And the wild part: no punches thrown yet, and people are already emotionally exhausted. Strap in. Because once this breakdown starts, the myths get tested, the skills get exposed. And somebody's favorite fighter gets verbally knocked down. Say continue. The deep dive gets dangerous the moment Max Kellerman started seriously breaking down a potential Devin Haney versus Shakur Stevenson matchup. The boxing internet didn't just lean forward, it launched out of its chair. Because when a seasoned analyst starts slicing through a fantasy fight with surgeon-level detail, fans treat it like classified information just got declassified. Suddenly, every casual opinion turns into a courtroom argument, and every debate turns into a family feud with gloves. The buzz didn't come from a contract signing or an official poster. No, it came from analysis energy. The kind where someone starts mapping out footwork, timing, range control, punch selection, and defensive layers like they're explaining a bank heist blueprint. When that kind of breakdown hits, fans don't hear commentary, they hear prophecy. Haney supporters instantly lined up saying technical discipline beats everything. Clean jab, distance control, ring generalship. The argument sounded like a textbook wearing boxing gloves. They painted a picture of a fighter who turns chaos into geometry and opponents into confused tourists. According to them, this is a masterclass waiting to happen, not a close fight. On the other side, the Stevenson crowd showed up with defensive highlights, counterpunch clips, and enough slow-motion pivots to start a film festival. They argued that Shakur doesn't just avoid punches, he deletes them from existence. They say trying to outthink him in the ring is like trying to play chess against a calculator. Calm, precise, cold, that's their slogan. And once those two fan armies locked eyes, peace left the building. Every sentence from the breakdown got clipped, reposted, and debated like scripture. Short quotes became long arguments. Nuanced points became absolute conclusions. That's the internet translation process. Complexity goes in, certainty comes out. Nobody says interesting point. They say case closed, even when the case just opened. People started arguing styles like they were arguing politics. He controls range better. His defense is cleaner. His timing is superior. Your take is trash. Technical discussion lasted about 4 minutes before it turned into digital shouting. Happens every time. Boxing debates have a shorter fuse than fireworks. Then came the style versus style obsession. Boxer versus tactician. Jab versus counter. Control versus disruption. Fans built full fight simulations in their heads and then got emotionally attached to the imaginary scorecards. I saw people arguing over hypothetical round 8 like it already happened and caused trauma. Old fights got dragged into evidence. Look what he did against this opponent. Watch how he handled that pressure. Clips from years ago started trending again like flashback episodes. Context sometimes included. Selective memory always included. Highlight culture is undefeated in debates. The sarcasm wave rolled in too. Memes sang boxing fans after one breakdown with detectives and red string boards. Jokes about how nobody respects any fighter unless they beat everyone at once in the same night. One viral post said boxing debates age you faster than stress. Not inaccurate. What made this breakdown hit harder is that it didn't rely on hype. Language, it leaned on technical reasoning. That actually makes people argue more, not less. Because when logic enters the chat, ego grabs a chair. Fans don't just want their fighter to win. They want their prediction to look intelligent. Soon the conversation shifted from who wins to how they win. Decision or domination. Tactical shutdown or point clinic. People started predicting punch. Stats, movement patterns, and adjustment windows like they had access to the simulation engine. Confidence levels stayed high. Agreement levels stayed 0. Boxing creators started building digital whiteboard breakdowns, foot placement diagrams, angle charts, jab lanes, counter windows. It looked like geometry class taught by adrenaline. Some of it brilliant. Some of it nonsense with arrows. All of it loud. And of course, once the debate reached peak volume, the fantasy booking began. Catchweight talk, venue talk, timeline talk, purse talk. We went from analysis to event planning without a single signed paper. The internet loves building. Stadiums out of maybe. What really poured gasoline on the conversation was the idea that this is not a slugfest. Matchup, it's a brain versus brain matchup. That makes fans even more intense. Power punch fights create excitement. IQ fights create arguments. Nobody argues about knockouts. They argue about nuance. Now the narrative isn't just who wins, it's who exposes who. That word. Expose is the most dangerous gasoline in fight talk. Once fans believe exposure is possible, debate becomes emotional investment. Nobody wants their favorite labeled solved. At this point, the analysis has outgrown the analyst. The breakdown became a battlefield. The hypothetical became personal. The debate became identity and the escalation phase. It's just getting warmed up. Then the conversation stopped being a breakdown and turned into a full-scale digital riot with scorecards. Once the clips of Max Kellerman's analysis started circulating everywhere. Every platform became a virtual press conference with 0 moderators and unlimited yelling. Boxing Twitter, boxing YouTube, boxing TikTok, all synchronized chaos. You would think the fight had already happened and ended in a split decision robbery. The way people were arguing. Other analysts and ex-fighters started jumping in with their own takes. And that's when the temperature really cracked the thermometer. One says Haney's discipline and jab control turns the fight into a long night of frustration. Another says Stevenson's defensive instincts and counter timing make it look like a sparring session where one guy forgot to RSVP. Now fans aren't just debating, they're choosing which expert to believe like it's a draft pick. Reaction videos multiplied like clones. You're all wrong breakdowns. Here's the real key breakdowns. Nobody noticed this breakdowns, apparently. Every creator discovered a secret technique hidden from the rest of humanity. According to thumbnails alone, at least 12 different fatal flaws and 9 underrated weapons exist simultaneously. Memes reached championship level. Side-by-side clips labeled pure offense versus pure defense like a superhero alignment chart. Edits showing a chessboard on one side and a calculator on the other. One viral joke said this matchup would have fewer clean punches than a shadow boxing session in the dark. Disrespectful, but the comment section laughed anyway. Fan bases started pulling out. Coombox stats like lawyers pulling case law. Numbers flying everywhere. Connect percentages. Opponent averages. Punch differentials. Half the stats were real. Half were emotional. All were weaponized. Nothing gets cherry-picked faster than boxing data during a fantasy. Matchup debate. Pop culture comparisons went completely off the rails. People said this fight would be like two grandmasters playing speed chess on roller skates. First called it the boxing version of a courtroom drama where every move is an objection. One comment said casual fans would call it boring, while purists would call it art, and both would yell at each other afterward. That might be the most accurate prediction. Yet, the outraged crowd showed up too, not mad at the fighters, but mad at the idea of the matchup being debated too early. Make the fight first. Stop fantasy booking. This is why boxing delays everything. These folks type like referees with caffeine. They want contracts before conversations. Unfortunately for them, the internet runs on imagination. First, paperwork later. Meanwhile, hypothetical round breakdowns started trending. I'm not joking. People posting full scorecards for imaginary rounds. Haney takes the first 3 with the jab. Shakur adjusts by round 4. Swing rounds in the middle. We are now judging ghost punches in theoretical minutes. This is not analysis. This is boxing fan fiction with attitude. The sarcasm got sharper too. Posts saying, boxing fans when 2 defensive masters might fight minus 300K buys. 9 million arguments. Others joked that the real winner would be the mute button. Somebody wrote that this fight would need a PhD to score properly. Honestly, not far off then, the style contrast graphics started flooding timelines. Defense ratings, ring IQ scores, footwork tiers. Yes, tiers. We are now ranking footwork like video game attributes. Somewhere, a coach is shaking his head while the internet assigns legendary status to pivot angles. What really escalated things was pride attachment. Fans weren't just picking a winner, they were picking an identity. Technical boxer fans versus defensive genius fans. Precision versus anticipation. Control versus adaptability. Once identity gets attached to prediction, debates stop being fun and start being personal. You could see it in the language shift. It moved from, I think, to you don't understand boxing. That sentence is the nuclear missile of sports arguments. The moment it appears, peace negotiations are over. Now it's ego versus ego with punch stats. Creators began staging full simulated breakdowns using animation, shadowboxing demos, and exaggerated reenactments. Some helpful, some hilarious. One guy used chess pieces and boxing gloves. Another used action figures, educational maybe, entertaining. The loudest twist in the conversation is this. The more technical the matchup sounds, the more divided the audience becomes. Knockout fights unite crowds. Tactical fights divide them like inheritance money. Half the viewers cheer mastery. Half the viewers demand fireworks. Nobody leaves satisfied except debate channels. And through all this noise, one truth sits. Quietly in the corner, the fight doesn't even need to be signed to become legendary in discussion. Narrative alone builds myth. Debate alone builds tension. Words alone build stakes. Right now, the hypothetical has become emotional reality for millions of fans. And when fantasy starts feeling real, the backlash phase is never far behind. Because next comes the consequence talk, legacy talk, risk talk, duck talk, and that's where it gets dangerous. Now the conversation shifts from who wins to the far more dangerous question, who risks more by even taking it? This is where fantasy matchups stop being fun debates and start becoming legacy landmines. Because once a fight like Haney versus Stevenson gets analyzed this deeply, talked about this loudly, and simulated this obsessively, the expectations become heavier than the belts. Suddenly, it's not just a matchup, it's a career fork in the road. People start saying things like, if he takes this and loses, it changes everything. That sentence alone carries more tension than a title fight poster. Legacy talk enters the chat wearing a suit and carrying pressure. Fans begin calculating reputational damage like accountants of ego. One loss in a high-Q matchup gets judged differently than a loss in a war. Close decisions become controversy fuel. Tactical fights become robbery debates waiting to happen. The narrative monsters wake up too. You know them well, duck talk and exposure talk. The two most overused, overpowered, undefeated phrases in boxing social media. If the fight doesn't happen soon enough, somebody yells, duck. If it does happen and looks one-sided, somebody yells, exposed. No middle ground. No patience. Just verbal grenades. Public perception becomes the invisible opponent. Because now, even silence gets interpreted. No mention of the matchup. Avoiding smoke. Too much mention. Clout building. Respectful comments. Mind games. Everything becomes evidence in the trial of opinion. The internet doesn't watch, it prosecutes. Promoter conversations get dragged into the spotlight too. Fans start theorizing about negotiations, purse splits, timing strategies, network politics. None of them on the calls. All of them confident. Boxing business talk online is like weather prediction. Loud, technical, and frequently wrong, but always delivered with authority. What makes this particular fantasy clash so volatile is the style narrative attached to it. This isn't puncher versus puncher, where chaos explains everything. This is precision versus precision that raises the debate stakes. If it's competitive, fans argue scorecards for years. If it's one-sided, fans rewrite reputations overnight. Tactical fights age like arguments, they never die. The fighters' relationships with fan bases also shift under hypothetical pressure. Supporters become more defensive. Critics become more aggressive. Neutral observers get accused of bias by both sides. Nobody trusts anyone's scorecards anymore, not even imaginary ones. Then comes the resume war. Opponent lists get compared like stock portfolios. Strength of schedule debates return from the grave. Who fought the better competition becomes the new battlefield. Context gets bent. Timelines get stretched. Names get reinterpreted. Victories get downgraded or upgraded depending on who's arguing. Resume Math Online is more flexible than yoga.media personalities start getting pulled into the argument too. If an analyst leans one direction, half the audience calls it insight and the other half calls it favoritism. Expertise becomes suspicious the moment it disagrees with someone's prediction. That's the cost of strong opinions in a divided debate. Applause and accusations arrive together. The myth-building machine keeps running regardless. Highlight reels get reshared with dramatic music like legend trailers. Defensive slips look supernatural. Jab sequences look surgical. Edits make everything look definitive. Reality is complex. Highlights are persuasive. Guess which one wins? Online, meanwhile, the risk-reward conversation grows teeth. Fans start asking whether taking such a technical, dangerous matchup is worth it at certain career moments. That's actually a smart boxing question, which is exactly why it gets answered emotionally instead of rationally online. Strategy talk gets drowned by pride talk every time. What's fascinating is how a non-signed fight can still shape reputations. Just being discussed in a high-level hypothetical changes how fighters are viewed. It raises perceived ceilings. It magnifies perceived flaws. Debate alone becomes a spotlight. Spotlight changes narrative. Narrative changes legacy even before a bell rings. And here's the twist nobody admits. The longer the fight stays hypothetical, the bigger it grows in legend. Imagination has no judges and no bad scorecards. Fantasy matchups are undefeated because they never lose, only arguments do right now. This showdown lives in that dangerous zone between analysis and mythology. Too detailed to ignore. Too unscheduled to settle. Too debated to disappear. Which means the next real development, a call-out. A quote, a negotiation rumor won't just trend. It will detonate because when expectation gets this loud, reality never enters quietly. It kicks the ropes and demands attention. And that's the full ringside breakdown, the analysis storm. The style versus style chess match, the legacy pressure, the resume wars, and the internet turning one expert breakdown into a 12-round comment section brawl. No punches thrown, no bell rung, and somehow half the fanbase already screaming. Robbery, that's boxing debate culture. Baby louder than the arena and twice as unforgiving. Now I'm handing the mic to you. Who actually takes it, Haney or Stevenson? And more importantly, how do they take it? Clean boxing clinic or tactical shutdown? Close decision or mental masterclass? Don't just drop a name, drop your round-by-round theory. Bring the heat, bring the logic, bring the fight IQ. The smartest breakdowns get pinned. The boldest predictions get remembered. The wildest takes get replayed when the future proves somebody wrong. If you want more fight deep dives that hit harder than press conference face-offs and sharper than split decision scorecards, smash that like button. Like it owes you sanctioning fees. Subscribe like the unsubscribe button talked crazy about your favorite fighter. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown, the next controversy, the next boxing internet explosion, because around here, .com weeks are just intermissions, hot takes, cold analysis, M0 sugarcoating every time. This is Punch Press, where the gloves are off. The breakdowns are brutal, and the truth goes all 12 rounds. Stay loud, stay sharp, stay debating, because the next fight might start with words, not punches, not punches.